many community volunteers who worked with us in Southcrest to help residents and have continued to help every single day. Since last week, I've been organizing relief and assistance efforts in coordination with the city and county forces. Our city employees have been doing an amazing job, from our lifeguards performing swift water rescues, to our stormwater department getting into the channels in Choyas Creek, to our environmental services department managing waste and debris removal. I want to thank you for all you have done and all you continue to do. On Friday and Saturday, we were able to organize cleanup assistance efforts to help people get things out of their homes and onto the streets for pickup by environmental services. We also were able to coordinate with EDCO for the donation of large dumpsters that allowed us to immediately haul tons out of this neighborhood. I would like to thank EDCO from the bottom of my heart and their ongoing support. Organizations like the San Diego Union Carpenters, Local 619, La Yuna Local 89, Cox Communications, SDG&E, Emerson Construction, Chelsea Realty Group, Viet Voices, the Red Cross, Alba Construction, Home Depot, and the San Diego Police Officers Association all showed up to help. The donation of equipment and the sheer manpower and dedication of these volunteers have been so valuable in our efforts to help residents. Assembly member David Alvarez and his staff for their assisting residents and connecting people with state resources as well. County Supervisor Nora Vargas was there helping to coordinate the county response with the city's response. Council member Shu from La Mesa also came with La Mesa city employees to assist with the relief efforts. I would also like to recognize my colleagues, Council President Pro Tem LaCava, Councilmember Von Wilbert, Councilmember Lee, Councilmember Campillo, and all of your staff for your willingness to come out and help the residents most impacted by the flooding along Beta Street in Southcrest on Saturday. Your presence at the site of the disaster speaks volumes to the residents who needed you the most. I also want to recognize our Chief of Police, David Nislight. On Saturday, he was right there on the ground at a home at Birch and Beta, hauling debris out of a house for hours through mud, along with other community volunteers and city employees. Thank you so much, Chief. These relief efforts are vitally important, and every helping hand impacts someone in ways that may seem small, but actually means a lot. For instance, on Saturday, going door to door asking residents if they needed help, I met a woman who told me she had gone days without medicine she needed for her heart condition. She was too afraid to leave her home for fear of someone looting it. So while I drove her to get medicine, Council President Pro Tem LaCava stayed at her house to make her feel comfortable. So thank you so much, Council President Pro Tem. We did have to take her to Kaiser and she did get her medication. And she was a community leader. She was helping out hundreds and hundreds of people this whole time. This is all to say that everybody could help affected residents in different ways. And I want to continue to put the call out to everybody in the city to come volunteer your time to help your fellow San Diegans in their time of need. As we all know, more rain will be coming on Thursday and Friday and possibly next week. We cannot let up in our effort to help these impacted by the flooding and in our preparation for more rain. For people who need help, there's a local assistance center at the Spring Valley branch of the San Diego County Library on 836 Kempton Street in Spring Valley. I very much hope to open up an assistance center at Southcrest Recreation Center soon so that residents don't need to travel so far to get help. Also, the Red Cross has established an emergency shelter at Lincoln High School at 4777 Imperial Avenue for anybody impacted by flooding and storm damage. For San Diegans that can volunteer their time to help in the relief and cleanup efforts, please call my office, 619-236-6688, or email me at vivianmoreno@sandiego.gov. For San Diegans that wish to donate to organizations helping victims of the flooding, please go to www.sdg&e.org www.sandiego.gov/storm to find out how to donate. I have been struck by the resilience of those impacted by the flooding, and I know that our community is going to stay strong during this time and make sure all those affected are cared for and have access to the resources they need. Again, thank you everybody for your help.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. I will have more to say about the impacts of the storm on my district and other communities during our first item, but I want to thank you for your leadership and response. The conversations we've had over the last week and your comments here, drive home how much you love your community and how you show up for it. And I am really appreciative of that. I thank my colleagues for showing up. Councilmember Moreno called me that afternoon and we talked, and she shared all that appreciation in that phone call as well. But mostly, Vivian, thank you. Thank you for being who you are and how you're showing up for the community. It's super, super important. With that, we will now move to item S401.
Thank you, Council President. I'll also go over how the public can offer their public testimony during this afternoon's meeting. If you are located here in person, please submit a speaker slip located at the entrance of chambers and place it on top of the box indicated at the speaker's high lectern at the front of the room. Please submit your speaker slip in a timely manner to ensure proper meeting management. No further in-person testimony will be taken once the council begins virtual testimony. If you would like to participate virtually, you can do so via the webinar information found on the agenda cover page. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand by either dialing *9 or pressing the raise your hand icon before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after in-person testimony ends, whichever occurs first. For purposes of today's meeting, the order of business is anticipated to be as follows. Item S401, item S400, item S402, item 200, item 201, followed by non-agenda public comment. Item S401 is the ratification of the mayor's proclamation of a local emergency due to the January 2024 winter storms. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand now or submit the speaker slip.
Thank you, Clerk. We will, if the presenter, please introduce yourself for the record and let us know how much time you'd like for your presentation.
Good afternoon, Council President, Elo Rivera, members of the council. Matt Yagyagan with the Office of the Mayor. I need approximately 9 minutes for my presentation today.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council President Elo Rivera, members of the council. I am here to present item S401, requesting the ratification of the mayor's proclamation of a local emergency due to the January 2024 winter storm. On January 22nd, 2024, a severe winter storm hit San Diego, directly affecting the safety of persons and property within this city. This unprecedented 1,000-year storm brought rains of historic proportions, causing widespread flooding throughout the city of San Diego, and resulted in significant emergency response and recovery activities by the city. January 22nd was the 4th wettest day on record in the history of San Diego, according to the National Weather Service. We shattered our previous record for daily precipitation, especially as the intensity of rainfall accumulated within a short period of time. What happened this day was a natural disaster. As a result of the storm, city departments were engaged in widespread emergency response and recovery activities, such as swift water rescue operations, traffic control, debris removal, clearing and repairing of storm drains and culverts, tree and mud removal. Additionally, city public facilities incurred damages from storm impacts, including flooding, high winds, and fallen trees. The impacts of the storm impacted other public agencies as well, as the San Diego Metropolitan Transit System had to shut down its downtown trolley service and suspend many bus routes. MTS also reported damage to all 3 trolley lines. Caltrans and the California Highway Patrol temporarily closed segments of the Interstate 15 and State Route 94 due to flooding. San Diego Gas and Electric reported more than 15,000 customers without electricity on their outage map, mostly in southeastern San Diego. San Diego Unified School District issued early dismissals from several schools in impacted areas with concerns for public safety. Additionally, the flooding caused from the storm event generated significant damage to homes and private property across the city, with widespread impacts in neighborhoods including, but not limited to, Southcrest, Shelltown, Mountain View, Encanto, Mount Hope, and many others. There were also further impacts to other jurisdictions, other municipalities within the County of San Diego limits. Due to the significant emergency conditions, damages, and response and recovery efforts caused by the January 22nd storm, the mayor proclaimed a local emergency on January 22nd, 2024, while council was not in session. The California Government Code and San Diego Muni Code empower the mayor as the Director of Emergency Services to proclaim a local emergency when the city is affected by a disaster and the city council is not in session. The Muni Code and state law further require that the city council ratify such a proclamation within 7 days thereafter, or the proclamation shall have no further force or effect. This is the action being requested of you today. Further, on January 22nd, 2024, the County of San Diego also proclaimed a state of emergency in anticipation that resources and assistance from the state and federal government may be needed because of damage caused by the flooding from the storm. On January 23rd, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency in San Diego and Ventura counties to support recovery from winter storms in late December and January. The emergency proclamation includes provisions facilitating unemployment benefits for impacted residents and waiving fees to replace records such as driver's license cards and birth certificates. The city has activated its Emergency Operations Center and Incident Management Team to coordinate response and recovery efforts with a special focus in the immediately impacted areas. The EOC is in the midst of documenting and reporting damages incurred from the storm in coordination with the county and other agencies. Preliminary cost estimates are still being generated and are subject to change, but we are projecting the cost of the damage to public infrastructure to be $44 million at this point. This does not include damage to private property, as well as damage to infrastructure owned and operated by other agencies such as MTS, the county, San Diego Unified District, and many others. The city is thankful for the community response efforts to help those impacted by the storm, and we know that the mutual aid being provided to families is filling a tremendous need out in the community. Thank you to you all, council members, and to your staff and to your offices for mobilizing, volunteering at impacted sites, putting out calls for volunteers, and getting the word out for mutual aid. Thank you also to the American Red Cross for establishing an emergency shelter at Lincoln High School for those impacted by flooding and storm damage. It is critical that residents and businesses impacted by the storm and who have experienced flooding report damage through the county's online survey to ensure we are appropriately capturing damage. You can find the survey on sandiego.gov/storm. We are also having volunteers go door to door to assess residents with filling out these surveys. The city is also replacing lost or damaged trash bins at no charge to residents in impacted areas. We are waiving all towing fees for vehicles in impacted areas as well. In an effort to provide advance notice, city staff is notifying owners prior to issuing tows. Just want to note that it's imperative for the city to clear the right-of-way in these impacted areas, especially as we prepare for the next rain event later this week. 1,443 tons of mud, debris, trash, and bulky items have been removed from the areas impacted by flooding, including Southcrest, Shelltown, Mountain View, Mount Hope, Encanto, and others. Big thank you to the environmental services, transportation, and stormwater crews who have been working around the clock to coordinate this cleanup. Additionally, the Stormwater Department is conducting emergency work in Choice Creek following the storm, clearing culverts along the creek clogged by material carried downstream by floodwater flows. Work has already commenced in Southcrest, starting in the storm channel at 38th Street and then working northeast along the creek. Further, in an effort to support local businesses impacted by this week's record storm, the city will launch an emergency response grant to provide funds for up to 100 small businesses and nonprofits. The Business Emergency Response and Resilience Grant will make financial assistance available with up to $2,500 per business and up to $5,000 for businesses and nonprofits in the federally designated promise zone. The application period will open in mid-February, and the city is encouraging business owners to track any expenses related to storm recovery. With all this said, the response effort continues, and we anticipate it continuing for several weeks. Staff recommends today that the council adopt the resolution ratifying the mayor's proclamation of a local emergency dated January 22nd, 2024. Your support of this item will help us execute a recovery plan moving forward to ensure that we are able to rebuild many of these communities. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. We will now go to public comment.
Thank you, Council President. We have several speakers here in chambers as well as participating remotely. We will go to 1 minute apiece, starting with Gambler. If you can please come forward. And then I'll be reading the rest of the names, so they can please come forward to the first row for better meeting management. Christopher Kennison, Gerardo Hernandez, Mackenzie Martinez, Aaron Surmoto Grassi, and Fermin Martinez Jr. and Danny Avitia. You'll have 1 minute, please proceed.
Hi, my name is Gambler. Apparently, you guys also really don't care about what the people have to say. Hey, Vivian, I saw you fake crying. I appreciate the Hollywood aspects on this, but do you guys take any responsibility for not doing your job and not cleaning out the waterways so that when this stuff happens, it wouldn't affect us the way it is? What about ice plant along banks so that mud doesn't come into the streets? When did we stop doing that? Oh, when you needed to start putting money into other things instead of our infrastructure, correct? You need to go ahead and build housing. You need to go ahead and do that. Well, you make people lose all their shit to serve your personal goal. I know 100% that the elections in the past since 2020 have not been legit. I could fill out anyone's ballot, turn it in, and the 90% chance it will be accepted. So how many of you did that to get up there? How many of you paid people to collect ballots for you?
Your
to get
time
elected?
has concluded, sir.
Appreciate it. Come.
Christopher Kennison. After that will be Gerardo Hernandez and Mackenzie Martinez. Please proceed. Mhm.
Okay. I wrote down some notes. My name is Chris. I'm with Alliance San Diego. I was just out there in the field where some of these communities was hit. I think it's a shame that most of this disaster damage wasn't prevented. It's a shame where you have community members that have to save their own grandmothers on a jet ski. Doing this after the fact is a terrible thing to do. The same thing happened in 1979 where promises were made and nothing happened after the flood. The Southcrest green infrastructure hasn't even started, and that was back in 2016. I was on the freeway when it was flooding. I had to drive on these streets just to make it back home. It took me 2 hours to get home, and I had to drive through the most impacted areas in the city. And then for San Diego to be such a big city and do something after the fact is a shame. And seeing your so-called leaders out there with a camera for like 10 minutes and their shirt saying flood, I'm not gonna say the person's last name, but that's embarrassing to me. I think something needs to be more done, and my main message here is being more proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you for that concluding remark. Next is Gerardo Hernandez. Gerardo Hernandez. You have time ceded to you by Andrea Guerrero. If you can please raise your hand. Jalen Choi, please raise your hand. Jalen, can you please raise your hand if you're here? Ted Womack? Ted Womack? Ted Womack, are you here? Please raise your hand so that I can give this gentleman his time. No, he just spoke. Okay, you'll have 3 minutes. Please proceed. Thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Go. Okay, my name is Gerardo Hernandez, live on Beta Street. I've been there 8 years. City has not done nothing to clear that creek we got. We only got 4 storm drains. What was Mayor plan before, plan now? We need something now. We need homeless vouchers to hotels. We need some. I'm disabled. My daughter was out there rescuing neighbors, elderly neighbors, no help. I was in the city, calling the city at 8 o'clock in the morning, knowing how it gets there, no answers. That's why I'm frustrated, because they know how the community gets right there. Last week, that little rain day you had, the pump truck was out there. Why weren't they out there Monday, knowing how that neighborhood gets? It's time for him to step up and we're brown. Don't put us in the ground. We all equal. It's time for him to start a plan now. Thank God there was no deaths. Now imagine if it was nighttime, there would have been bodies floating around. Then what would he have done? It's time for him to open his eyes, go to that community, and see what the disaster we're going through. The mayor of National City is out there working his butt off. Where is he at? Todd Gloria, it's for time for you to step up to do this. Don't put us. The South Crest is the one that got hit the worst. It's time for you to step up and put storm drains. We're cruising downtown right now. They got those big storm drains. Those are the ones we need. We only got 3 or 4 of the 4x4s. That's not enough. City never showed up. We heard that this guy named Ricky from Birch Street, he's the one that swam to the storm drains, unclogged them within 10 minutes. Me and my neighbors, 5 hours sitting there at cold water. I'm disabled. I couldn't get up on top of a roof. He couldn't get on top of. So he told me, homeboy, you go, we go. Praying the Lord to keep us safe. 5 hours right there. Firefighters just in canoes. Where was the help? Knowing how that neighborhood gets. It's time for him to do it now. Don't wait. We need any help, anything. City he has not been there passing water out. Nobody. We got people from other places coming, bringing us food, tacos, everything. We thank them that they're doing that, because I lost all my sports memorabilia. I was a collector. My son was a Hot Wheel collector. Lost everything. I had cards that were expensive. Lost everything. Everything. My daughter was barefooted. She got her feet cut up to rescue my Miss Dorothy, cancer patient, called me crying. I couldn't do nothing. I called my daughter, Jasmine, please go for Miss Dorothy. She swam over my son's Lexus car over the fence barefooted, calmed her down, brought her towards us. Me and my neighbor swam to Lexus, pulled her up, put them both on the roof. We had my 4 dogs on top of her roof.
Sir,
It's
you have
time
one
for
more
him to
minute
step
given to you by
up.
somebody else.
Do something. Do something. Todd Gloria, do. This community needs a plan now. Now, not next week. We need it now. I'm disabled. I lost all my pain medication. I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm praying the Lord to give me the strength to keep on going for my kids. I'm tired. He's got to do something now. Look at me. I'm suffering, but I'm going. I loved working. I disabled. I can't. I've been like this since 2008. 2 back surgeries. They want to do another one, but there's 50 chances I'll end up in a wheelchair. So I told them, no, I don't want nothing. I'll just stay like this with a pain. It's time. Get up and go inspect that neighborhood. Everybody, the Beta Street, not just me, for the whole Beta Street, the whole community, we all suffering because of this, knowing how that community gets. He knows it.
That concludes your time, sir. Thank you for that
Thank you, guys.
concluding remark. Karen Lee did submit another minute to you. If you could please raise your hand, Karen. Thank you. You did receive 4 minutes. Next is Mackenzie Martinez. You can go to the high lectern, ma'am. Yes. Thank you. Please proceed. You'll have a minute.
Good afternoon. My name is Mackenzie Martinez. I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm here to share the stories of folks who are unable to be here today because they are still grappling with how to recover their lives following the devastating flood that impacted their homes. They are also physically trapped in their neighborhoods, many of them, due to road closures, remaining debris, and a lack of public transit. I met one woman this morning whose father died mere hours before the flood waters entered her home and caused over thousands and thousands of dollars in damages. Not only will she now have to contend with paying for a funeral for her father, but also replacing all of the electronics in her home, all of her appliances, as well as structural damage. She does not have the money to stay in a hotel and is sleeping in the dangerous conditions of her home. I met a father whose adult children rallied to assist him when no other support came. One son flew in from Portland to help him. These residents are not alone in their struggles, and we need a more thorough response from the city. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next is Aaron. Aaron, you have time ceded to you by Lillian Serrano. Thank you. And Samuel, sorry, you'll have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Hi, Erin Surmoto-Grassi, Policy Director at Alliance San Diego. While we support the resolution to ratify the mayor's proclamation of a local emergency, it's an important first step. However, it's not enough to just pass a resolution. I hope everybody knows that, but we are going to say that just to make sure it's on public record. Alliance San Diego has been on the ground talking to community members who've been impacted by the storm flooding. You've heard from a couple of my colleagues. Our own office in Barrio Logan flooded. The entire first floor flooded. A few things have become abundantly clear as we've been witnessing all this. One, it's not a coincidence where this all happened, that it's been in low income and Black and brown communities. There has been a historic disinvestment in these communities for years, and now we are seeing what happens as a result. Second, the city failed to prevent community members from addressing infrastructure issues. And we'll get to more of that later. And third, it's clear that the city did not have a plan and still lacks a plan to actually protect community members and keep all residents safe from future flooding. Alliance San Diego, we ourselves submitted a Get It Done request last March, to request the city fix the sidewalk outside of our office because it was flooding. The city responded to us, we got a response back, that no repairs were necessary. We've also been walking neighborhoods today where I can tell you from what I saw, we saw firsthand that there was mud and debris around the canals, around the fences that is just stacked up. It has not been removed. We saw debris in the canals and we saw storm drains that had garbage in them. While we had historic rain, the flooding itself was exacerbated by the city's lack of action and years of disinvestment in Black and brown communities. In the last 72 hours, we have gathered over 700 signatures that call upon the city to do the following. First, immediately clear the storm drains and culverts in flooded areas. 2, waive the towing and impoundment fees. Glad to hear that's going to happen. 3, provide dumpsters free of charge. Also glad to hear that. 4, present a plan to prevent, prepare for, and respond to flooding in the city, including financial, housing, and other support for affected residents. And 5, in the coming budget, prioritize investments in the drainage systems, including fixing the damaged storm drains and water infrastructure in impacted areas. We are less than 4 days out from the next storm. We cannot afford a repeat. So we need the city, this council, the mayor, everyone to step up, but we need the city to step up and take action to prevent flooding and protect residents by coming up with a plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Fermin Martinez Jr. If you can please come forward. After that, it will be Danny Avitia, Tasha Williamson, and Brisa Johnson. You'll have 1 minute. Please proceed.
So my name is Fermin Martinez. I reside at 3735 Beta Street, where right at Southcrest, where it all got flooded out. I'm the one that's the neighbor to my neighbor right here, Jerry. I got out of the house. I was at my grandma's. Unfortunately, that night, I woke up. I looked outside and I had to wake them up from sleeping. I had my grandma, me, my cousin, and my aunt. When we were walking out, it was to my stomach, the water. And then all of a sudden, like a flood came faster. And my grandma was like this short, so she would be underwater. So I had to get to his porch. Once the water started rising, we had to just come up with ideas how to get people up. We got them on the roof, their dogs. And I'll try to, no time to think, but it's just instinct, just adrenaline. That's all I have is my grandma. So I didn't care if I died with my neighbor, I'll stay there. But we need shelter, like vouchers for hotels. I'm a big person. People donating clothes, they don't fit me. So I need money to go buy clothes. This is like, I've been wearing this and washing it by hand in the mold house.
Thank you for that concluding remark.
Thank you.
Next is Danny Avitia.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Danny Avitia, a leadership consultant at San Diego State. I was one of the few fortunate not to be impacted by these horrible, devastating storm. But as we've seen today, there are many in our city that are continuing to face the extremely bad planning of this city. And post Monday's deluge, this natural disaster wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a city planning disaster. Things that we can do to help protect our community. I stand with Alliance when they say we need to provide free dumpsters. And so I see that you guys have done that, and I want to thank you guys. But the devastation in marginalized communities highlights the misplaced priorities and systemic inequalities in our communities. Over 100 families, predominantly in low-income communities, communities of color, grapple with shattered homes and with lives upended, with controllable forces. We can do better, and we must do better. Thank you very
for that
much.
concluding remark. Next is Tasha Williamson. Tasha, you have time ceded to you by Michael Rios. Thank you. You'll have 2 minutes. Please proceed when you get up here.
What is the plan? What is the plan? What this showed us all over San Diego County is that San Diego City did not have an emergency response plan. Did not. Mayor Todd Gloria signed a check for a loan, first loan, $733 million back in 2022. We got the article for infrastructure for storm drains. And what they talked about was Torrey Pines, north of the 8. What they talked about was Rancho Penasquitos, north of the 8. Just like the man who got up and spoke earlier, we have a 15-year-old and other teenagers who learned how to swim from Jackie Robinson YMCA and were able to save their neighbors. We have a woman on Yama who said the police just looked while she saved a woman who was gonna let go of her baby to save herself. These are the stories over and over and over again. What is the plan? We need more than dumpsters. We need more than $5,000 and $2,500. These families need to rebuild. This is San Diego. All of you have gotten in the press, including Eric Dargan and Mayor Todd Gloria. We will not forget Eric Dargan, who is the COO. They need to rebuild in one of the largest cities in America with a lot of money. You all need to work together as a city, county, state, and federal. Never again should there be a meeting like the one that was at Lincoln High School, where the mayor was absent, where Eric Dargan was absent. We are working with people who are our enemies. And you can't even work with people within your own government. Squash whatever bullshit you got and fix your shit.
There you go.
There were full-grown trees.
Yeah.
Full-grown trees.
Yes.
Thank you for the concluding remark.
That means there's 20 decades, at least 20 decades
Ms. Williams,
of not doing anything in those storm drains and those channels. This is on the city. And this should be an investigation. You better come up with some money. We're going to have more people here.
Yes.
Next is Brisa Johnson. And our last speaker is Erin Wilson Nieves. If you can please come forward to the front row.
Good afternoon. My name is Brisa Johnson. I'm with the San Diego Black Worker Center. I thought I was going to come up here and talk about the Black workers that have called us and let us know that they're worried about their employment because they don't have cars now to get to work. They don't have homes to adequately sleep in. They are having a hard time feeding their children. I thought that's what I was going to come and talk to you about. And I am so tired of having elected officials who don't put people first. We watch nationally our government lie to us, manipulate us, gaslight us. We put you in office and you have these wonderful promises and words, and we vote for you only for you to plan your next seat. And we are tired. I need you to care about people because you have the power, you have the resources. We are out here and none of us are a rapid response team. We don't know what we are doing, and we are doing the best that we can because we're putting people first. And I need you all to please put people first.
Thank you for that concluding remark. Next is Erin.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Erin Wilson Nieves. While I do work with the San Diego Black Worker Center, I am here to talk about it personally. So if I cry, excuse me. I live in National City, but my kids go to school off of Imperial and 68th at Heartbeat Music and Performing Arts Academy. They were stuck. I was stuck in National City and I couldn't get to my babies. I couldn't get to my babies because I couldn't get out of National City and I couldn't get into Southeast. Do you hear me? I was stuck. If anything happened to my babies, I could do nothing about it. And so to be here today, to be there in that day and have nothing said by the city about what was going on, what streets people couldn't go to, and seeing an update at 5:05, that was rough. And it's still rough because I look at my babies every day since then. And they're here and I love them. But in other words, right now we have something coming up, and I know my time is about to end, but we need more sand to take care of the people. We need more sand. We need help. I live somewhere where I'm okay. My babies are okay.
Thank you for that concluding
but
remark.
these folks are not. Okay? Please do something.
Thank you for that.
Please.
I have started the 5-minute timer here in chambers. We will go to those that are now participating via the online queue. We currently have 6 people in the queue, starting with Kathleen Lippett. If you can please unmute. Kathleen
Good
Lippett.
afternoon, Council. My name is Kathleen Lippett. My work with social service agencies made manifest the need for government to serve their constituents without favor. I appreciate that this council is not entirely responsible for the suffering due to the current flooding. Infrastructure investments declined by 37%, bringing to public attention the failure of government agencies and leaders to invest in infrastructure per their responsibilities. But it's even more irresponsible and inhumane to fail to invest in people that you serve by addressing their immediate needs and priorities instead of directing your attention to global initiatives. Failing to recognize the root causes of social and behavioral problems has led to epidemics of addiction, homelessness, mental health problems, and overdose deaths while your attention is diverted. The failure to invest in primary prevention, robust public health messaging, and demand reduction has predictably eroded abstinence is a goal.
Your time has concluded. Next is Aldo Mastro. Aldo Mastro, I have unmuted you.
Hi, my name's El Del Mastro, and I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a senior and I'm a small mom and pop landlord. And people that support Sarah Jacobs has reached out to me several times about people that are new to the country, immigrants, but they've reached out to me in this situation. And I have an open apartment that I could put people in right now that they could get warm. I just need you guys to have a little faith on me. We've been the city council president's whipping boy since he's been in office. If you could just remove the tenant protection plan over this particular issue, because it's a crisis, we would be happy to serve the community. I have already served my country and my community honorably for 38 years. I volunteer weekly at the VA with homeless veterans with alcohol and drug problems. Please have a little faith in us. We're not all demons. Thank you.
Next is A, if you can please unmute. A, you are unmuted, but we do not hear you here in chambers. Please make sure the device that you're speaking into is also unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Perfect, thank you. We need assistance for payment assistance, debt relief for utilities for people affected in the floods. The city is not helping clean up private properties. We have been cleaning up mud and debris from our homes with our own water, our own electricity. We have to plug in machines in order to do so, and we are terrified about the utility bill that's going to come because of this sudden spike. We need assistance. And we also need, I'm glad that you guys are going to provide dumpsters, but we need this now. And we need preparations for this upcoming storm, because if we don't get it, I'm very worried. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Blair Beekman, if you can please unmute.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I don't want my words to harm, but I need to be honest in my descriptions and feelings. San Diego, like many California cities in the past few years, has been receiving much new federal funding for their sewer systems and waterways in the past 2 years. Myself and others at Public Comment Time have also spoken for years now in the needs of environment and taking care of the homeless along the future of creeks with this new federal funding. I would guess important new federal funding for the Tijuana sewer system over the next 5 years can be more applied to issues like the future of the Southwest area at this time. San Jose, Lahaina, and now San Diego. I keep trying to note the work I am a part of towards more open, accountable practices also tries to develop peace, sustainability, and to not cause harm in our community decision-making. Good luck how we can learn to follow and practice these good ideals and what we need to be working towards in the next few months with infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. There are 15 seconds left in the 5-minute timer. Once that timer does conclude, there will be no other additional speakers taken. We have 5 speakers in the queue now. Next is the original, if you can please unmute.
This is anything but a natural disaster. They are manipulating the weather. Nobody wants to talk about that. Disasters are highly lucrative business. That is why when you guys don't do anything afterwards, after the fact, you can get the money and then we'll see if it goes to the people, because you're only talking about helping 100 businesses. I guarantee you there is way more than that. And the fact that you have lawsuits where people were begging and pleading for you guys to clean out the culverts and storm drains and you did not, you made this happen. And it is terrifying to think that there is another storm coming and what is going to happen with that, because you guys look at the climate, it's the new God over everything else, and you will get all the money and do all the projects that help with that, but you neglect the people when they come to you and ask you to do the jobs that need to be done. And this is a transportation issue because the transportation department isn't doing their job, and so you can't come and say that we're doing all of these great things after the fact. You should have been doing it before. The blatant disregard for the public as well, for just silencing their voice and only giving 1 minute is completely absurd. And the fact that you think trash cans are any concern over the just well-being and health and just needing to
Your time has concluded. Next is Lori Saldana, if you can please unmute.
Yes, this council is trying to proclaim an emergency at a local level, probably knowing that at the federal level, You knowingly place people in harm's way, and FEMA doesn't look kindly on that. You knowingly put a safe camp in an unsafe area through a drainage. There are maps available to show the drainage running through that parking lot. This is why the Alpha tent has been destroyed, possibly permanently, for a second time. You placed homeless people in harm's way. You did that knowingly. And the federal government is not going to give you compensation for damages for property that you erected in a flood zone. Now you are proposing putting housing at Petco Park and the adjacent parking lot. It will be underwater in the next few years. And Midway Rising is already sinking. It's not Midway Rising, it's Midway sinking. Stop having more emergencies, stop putting people in harm's way, build in safe areas.
Thank you. Next is Ted Womack. If you can please unmute.
Thank you. My name is Ted Womack, and I've lived on South 42nd Street since about 1998 and 1999. Since 2005, and that's probably an understatement, we've been putting in requests to have that back canal cleared out, and it's been ignored. There's been floods back there. There's been fires back there. There's been situations where children were not safe back there. And it's literally just because you have ignored our request to clear this area and make it safe. And now people are flooded, losing homes and losing their livelihood, and you're still not doing anything. You're literally failing us. I see one council member up there with tears in his eyes, and everyone else doesn't care because you don't live in an area that's not flooded. None of your houses are flooded. You don't care. Please do something. At the very least, do your job titles and represent us for the city and come to our help. There's people out there today with nothing. Their cars are getting towed. They're getting ticketed. They're getting fined. Bills on top of bills on top of bills. People have been staying in hotels for a week and they don't have any more money to stay in hotels. So please help people. Go out into the streets and look at them in their faces and go help them.
Your time has concluded. Thank you. Next is phone number ending in 3731. If you can please unmute. Again, the 5-minute timer had concluded in chambers. If you have raising your hand, please be sure to send your emails into cityclerk@sandiego.gov, and those comments will be distributed to the council. 3731, please proceed.
Okay, what's sad is the people most affected are too busy cleaning up to come here and comment. Vivian, there should have already been a coastal area in Spring Valley for people to get information about aid and resources. I was pleased to see most of you out there assessing. Some of you may be helping clean up, but before this storm, why weren't any of you ensuring that these neighborhoods, like Conto and Mountain View, were receiving the services they demanded, which included clearing the block channels they kept requesting be cleared? And why was there a delayed response from the city in providing garbage bins or cleanup tools after the fact? That amounts to criminal negligence, and I'm looking forward to the lawsuit. Todd Gloria has exposed himself again as someone who does not care. This is exactly the same as his broken promises about fixing the roads the city doesn't even have money to fix. Lies. All we've got is another emergency to funnel money to who knows where. Here's a real plan. Dump Todd Gloria in the pet projects by these city council members. $6 million in ARPA money plus $3 million a month goes to shelters and tech toys for illegal immigrants. Think about that. $7, $9 million, $10 million.
Your time
should be
has
going to help
concluded.
people here.
The next and the last speaker is Dana Givett. If you can please unmute. Dana, if you can please unmute. You are unmuted, but we don't hear you here in chambers.
The 2023-27 5-year capital infrastructure planning outlook, Appendix F, shows the community flood assessment and what is at risk in 2021. It shows 1,832 pipe failure locations, 24 pipe failure bypass locations, 68 channel degradations, 7 structure degradation locations, 49 flooding locations with surface drainage, 13 levee degradation locations, and 2 drainage ditch degradation locations. These problems were known 3 years ago. Nothing that happened on Monday should have been a surprise. The city has prioritized bike lanes and purchasing 101 Ash Street over stormwater management. Time to reassess San Diego's priorities. You're reviewing a new budget. Start making it right. Thank you.
Thank you. That does conclude public comment on item S401.
Thank you, Clerk, and thank you to the members of the public for your comments. We'll begin the council's discussion of this item with Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you for the presentation. The flooding conditions have devastated many residents and impacted so many homes. I made a lot of comments at the beginning of this meeting. Obviously, having this state of emergency in place is going to allow the city to respond faster to conditions in the stormwater. We have been out there, my staff has been out there, but our efforts are just simply not enough. We need, and I want to reiterate, and as we speak right now, my staff is out there with an MTS truck getting folks out to the local assistance center in Spring Valley. I want to reiterate my call to the mayor that we need a local assistance center at Southcrest. We need the help in the community. The city needs help from the county. We need help from the National Guard. Residents need PPE, masks, and gloves. We need daily updates on the channel clearing. We need hotel vouchers. We were out there this morning at 8 a.m. I was there yesterday talking to folks. We had folks on Saturday out there cleaning up. We're going to be out there tomorrow. I don't want it to be missed that Matt Yagayagan, you've been helping. Lucero's been out there. Michaela's been out there with the mayor's staff, but it's just simply not enough, and we need help. Having this state of emergency in place is going to allow the city to respond faster to conditions in the storm channel. It will also help the city access state and federal resources, which is going to be absolutely critical as this disaster exceeds what the city can achieve alone. I want to thank everybody who came out here and spoke. I want to thank Mr. Hernandez. I saw you on Saturday in front of your home. I thank you guys for making all the comments. And with that, Council President, I'm going to move this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. Now go to Council President Pro Tem LaCava.
Thank you, Council President, and second the motion to move the declaration forward. Any words I come up with feel awfully hollow, and I can't add any more eloquently than those who showed up today in public. But to say thank you to Councilmember Moreno and her staff and what she did in what is arguably the hardest hit of all the areas. And to Council President, what you've done in District 9, unless we forget what the staff in the District 4 office have done in their communities. You know, for those that are listening in or watching on TV, you know, if you saw pictures, if you saw videos, it is nothing like what it is to actually walk those streets and see the devastation and seeing people just dump everything out of their homes and onto the streets. To see someone take a picture of their grandmother that couldn't even be salvaged because of the impact of the water. And the folks that were already ripping out their drywall and insulation with that desperate hope that their home could be salvaged, much less the possessions that they have out there. And you know, it is heartening to see after the fact the reaction and how much resources, and I think I'm going to ask you, Matt, in terms of what we have put out there on the ground in terms of city staff and pack our trucks, trash trucks out there to haul that away. And maybe you can give us a little more specific idea about what the status of the creeks are. So let me just stop there before I ask a couple of more questions.
I can speak to it, Council President Pro Tem, from a high level, and then I'll pass it over to Deputy Chief Operating Officer Chris McFadden, who's on the line here. But through the city's Emergency Operations Center, as well as our incident management team, several crews from the Environmental Services Department, the Transportation Department, the Stormwater Department are mobilizing every day with hundreds of employees and dozens of teams that are working in coordination to be able to first address the accumulation of debris, construction material, and other trash in the roadway. And then after that, utilizing stormwater and transportation crews to clean the right of way, pick up mud, abate mud, and ensure storm drains are clear. I'll let Chris talk a little bit more to the specifics there, but this is a tremendous coordinated effort with hundreds of employees on the ground working around the clock.
Yes, good afternoon, Chris McFadden, Deputy Chief Operating Officer. So we started actually last week with dredging and then continuing throughout this week. I'm happy to report that we have not just city staff, but contractors already on board that are dredging and have been dredging to clear the channels in the southwest community, particularly along Birch and Beta intersection to Ocean View Boulevard. I apologize, I'm not in person today. I'm actually at their Emergency Operations Center, so I'm getting the most relevant information. Also, from Birch to Beta Street, the work is 90% complete. That's by city forces. We expect to be completing that work today. From National Avenue to Ocean View Boulevard, that is 70% complete with anticipation completion of tonight. South 38th and National is 20% complete. This is where we're using city forces as well as contractors, and we do anticipate completing by Wednesday afternoon. Also, we have staff throughout the area continuing to clean storm drains, particularly, of course, along Birch and Beta, and then moving east upstream. We also have 3 emergency capital improvement contracts out at 3 different locations right now: Atkins Avenue Channel, Market Street Channel, and Cottonwood Channel. And of course, the real fix to this, which we have to pursue and we are pursuing, are capital improvement projects that will once and for all restore this creek to a design that it needs to be. I am happy to report that of the $733 million, much of that is going towards 26 planned projects in this watershed, and we've completed 33 projects. And this is information we'll be pushing out to the council offices later today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chris. Certainly, Choyas Creek and South Choyas Creek are the biggest creeks within our urbanized area and the oldest parts of our town. And, you know, that update, which I really appreciate, Chris, doesn't take away the fact that it happened in the first place. You know, clearing the debris is certainly an important step, given where we're at, but taking care of this area. And as an engineer, and I look forward to talking with the good folks over at Engineering Capital Projects about how it happened, the talk of a 1,000-year storm. You know, we don't design storm drains or flood channels for 1,000-year storms. If we're lucky, we design them for 100-year storms, as I've talked about. The proximity of this area, low-lying area, to the confluence of South Choyas and Choyas Creek, I'm sure had a role in this intense rainfall over a very short amount of time. But as an engineer, I know no one cares about that right now. In the months ahead, we'll talk about that and debrief and et cetera. It's about it happened and what do we do now? Some of the speakers and Councilmember Moreno spoke about that it's difficult for folks to either get to Lincoln High School or out to Spring Valley or any of the sites the city or the county has. Is there any opportunity to bring a resource center closer to these impacted areas here in the cities?
Thanks for the question, Pro Tem. There's certainly an opportunity to do that. We're in direct conversations with the county to plan out a much closer local assistance center than the one in Spring Valley. Many thanks to Councilmember Moreno. She's helped with organizing with MTS to ensure that they're providing transport from folks within the Beta Triangle over to Spring Valley. It's not enough, and there's still more that needs to be done there. But we're in direct conversations with the county about that now.
Certainly let me, but I let the council know how we can be of help. in adding our voice to the good work that you're doing. Um, I'll stop there. Again, the words that coming out of my mouth feel awfully hollow in terms of what has affected these people and the resources we need to bring to help them, not just get over the trauma of what has happened in cleaning their homes out, but what's next and how do we start the road to recovery for these individuals and which homes can be salvaged. Now, that's going to be a very tough and ugly conversation in the days and weeks ahead. And God help those people for what comes Thursday and Friday. Hopefully the cleanup that's being done will be sufficient. So with that, again, I'll second the motion. It's an important step, kind of a nuts and bolts step to get access to the state and federal resources. And again, let us know how we can help out. So, and I'll close there, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Pro Tem. Councilmember Moreno made a motion. Council President Pro Tem LaCava seconded it. We'll now go to Councilmember Von Wilpert.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to everyone who came in to share with us what you're seeing. I agree with Councilmember LaCava that there's no words that feel that we can say to make this right, and I'm very sorry for that. I want to thank Councilmember Moreno for her leadership in getting so many volunteers out and calling for more attention. I was on Beta Street on Saturday, and so the public knows there's still water in people's homes. You walk into someone's living room and it's full of mud. We saw people lose everything from the food in their refrigerators and the clothes in their washing machines because we had to pull the refrigerators and the washing machines out and empty them into the street so they could be carried off so they wouldn't become toxic waste in people's houses. You can't tell from the pictures on the news or the videos on Instagram the deep impact this has on families who one day were taking their kids to school and waking up and just doing their daily lives and then that night don't have a place to go home to. So I have a couple of questions, and I see, we have folks from our Emergency Operations Center here. Where is FEMA and how are we going to get direct assistance to families to pay for all their lost belongings and everything?
I'm going to ask Megan Beal from the Emergency Operations Center to answer that question, Councilmember.
Hi, I'm Megan Beal with the city's Office of Emergency Services. I'm the Disaster Cost Recovery Coordinator in the Emergency Operations Center. So today there's actually 4 crews consisting of both FEMA representatives and Cal OES representatives who are doing site visits. There are 3 crews looking at private property damage, and then there's 1 crew looking at public property damage. And they are trying to determine the level of damage to determine if we meet thresholds to get those assistance. So we should be getting more information in the coming days, and hope to share that with you once we get it. Any other questions I can answer?
Yeah, so I've heard that FEMA does need the region to meet a monetary threshold of damage before FEMA will kick in to provide funds for individual families and people who've lost everything. One of the things I've been told is that people need to fill out an online survey to show they had damage, and that's of course not what people are thinking about when they're literally looking through soaked belongings trying to get clothes. But if that's something we need to help residents do to get this money, how do we do that? How do we help people get these surveys done?
So absolutely, that survey, that is what these crews on the ground are looking at, is trying to determine the level of damage. So the more spaces that they have to go look at, that certainly is, they will go look at as many damage reports as they can to determine the level of damage. So yes, reporting those through the survey is the best way for these crews to know where to go look to see the damage.
Okay, I'm hearing, we can't do back and forth, but I'm hearing that, no, it's okay, that the survey's not working. So I'm wondering if someone from city staff can please meet with these folks who took the time to come in and hear from them directly about how we can better serve them. That would be fantastic, because FEMA needs to do something. Thank you. I also have a question about housing vouchers. I know that the San Diego Foundation, for example, is raising funds for housing vouchers. How are we getting them to people in need who have nowhere to go?
I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Operating Officer Christina Peralta to answer that question, council member.
Thank you for the question, council member. We had a meeting this morning with the Housing Commission as well as the county staff for vouchers. So it's my understanding that the Housing Commission is devising a plan to start working with residents directly. They will have staff at the local assistance center in Spring Valley beginning today through the rest of the event to start assessing and meeting with residents to figure out who needs bridge housing and how we can be most helpful. But those conversations are taking place.
Okay, of course, I will defer to the mayor's office and to Councilman Moreno's office, but I agree, having it in Spring Valley is a good start, but we need someone there because people are directed to go there. At the same time, they should be in the neighborhoods, going door to door.
We are advocating with the county office, trying to work with their Office of Emergency Services to have one event in the city of San Diego proper. We're having those discussions.
Okay. What about sandbags? I mean, we need to get sandbags out in soon, so how is that going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, council member. And so we will have both sandbags and sand available at 10 recreation centers across the city. More information is posted on the city's storm recovery webpage, sandiego.gov/storm. We are so there are 10 recreations across 10 recreation centers across the county, specifically for impacted areas. We are going to be having pre-filled sandbags at Mountain View Rec Center and Encanto Rec Center, and we're going to be using city volunteers as well as external volunteers to help put those sandbags together, as well as deliver them into impacted areas before the next rain event Thursday morning.
Folks, just really quick. I want to make sure that the conversation between the council members and city staff can happen. I understand. We were happy to follow up and ask additional questions, but I also want to make sure that the conversation happens in the way that it needs to between council and staff. Thank you.
Yeah, so and again, I have asked that folks can address individual concerns after, and I would appreciate that. Okay, I'm glad they'll be actually delivered because we can't expect people who are combing through the remnants of their belongings to go get sandbags at this point. I think we need to deliver them to the houses that need them. And I really want to thank our city workers who have been put on mandatory overtime to be out there with trash compactors, with hazardous waste collections, and doing the work that needs to be done. I know they've been up late, and some of them, we had 27 city employees whose houses were flooded and affected. So I really want to thank our day-to-day rank and file workers who have really stepped up to help our communities. So thank you. Please keep us updated on what we can do. Thank you again to Council Moreno for coordinating everybody to go down and really see the damage, because you can't tell them until you see it. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Von Wilpert. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you so much, Council President, and thank you to the public for all your remarks and for giving us your testimony about what happened to you personally. We appreciate it. I want to say thank you to the mayor and all the city departments and staff for responding to the storm. Actually, during it, a lot of city staff responded, and right after, and continuing ongoing. And now, as you've heard, even around the clock, providing much needed resources to those personally affected. Our public safety professionals actually saved over 100 lives from drowning during the storm. And I appreciate all public volunteers who went out and helped their neighbors. And I just want to say that in District 2, we fared much better than other parts of the city, especially southeast. And so our particular staff went out Wednesday, less than 2 days after the storm, to discuss and see the damage with the residents. And our particular staff at Beta, Cottonwood, and Yama Streets. And I wanted to thank Councilmember Vivian Moreno for all her help and everything that she's done to help, and for appreciating and calling our office and thanking our people. They really appreciated that. And with guidance from the mayor's staff, we continue to work. So I want you people in the other parts of the city more affected to know that all of the people in the city are with you. We love you. We want to help you. We want to do everything we can, and we will do that. And I just want to say that Um, as our team visited there, they actually called Environmental Services on Wednesday and asked that they come, and they came immediately with trash trucks and staff and to help with those particular 3 streets where we saw such a great need. Of course, the need has not receded, but a special thanks to our Environmental Services Department. And as we prepare yet for another storm this coming week, this coming Thursday, I urge our District 2 residents to reach out to my office with any needs, concerns, and to reach out to the city also to volunteer to help those who've already been so terribly impacted. And the city will be handing out sandbags in various locations, including in District 2 at the North Claremont Rec Center and at Robb Athletic Field, which is right near the ocean and the San Diego River. So be sure to check out the city's website in regard to this. That's www.sandiego.gov/storm. There are a lot of places there you can click to get the information that you need. And be sure to complete the county's online survey. If your computer has been damaged during the storm and you can't do this, we understand, but we would like you to call on city, on your neighbors, on anybody you can reach to help you so that you can put in your personal report. Because it means so much to FEMA to have the addresses of the neighborhoods involved. But I know that you're noting down those 3 streets, Beta, Cottonwood, and Yama, and all the other streets, of course, in that area of Southeast San Diego. And all I can say is please, San Diego, stay safe, keep fighting. We will resolve these problems. Matt, thank you so much for your update on what's the plan. The plan is to clean out those storm drains, clean out those channels, and help the people. And hopefully, as time goes on and climate change gets worse, we continue to plan ahead and plan to fix our storm drain system, which, as we've been saying for years, is now approximately $4 billion behind in being fixed, and we wish to continue. We are continuing always to work on that. So thank you so much for your resilience. Thank you for your bravery. And let us continue to fight and to help you as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Councilmember Whitburn.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank the members of the public, each of you who came out and spoke today. Your experiences make it perfectly clear what happens when some communities experience decades and decades of underinvestment. You have a council member in Councilmember Moreno who has been a fierce advocate for investing more in your communities. And you have a lot of members of the City Council who agree with her and who agree with you. We have to prioritize communities that have suffered historic underinvestment, and we do need to speed up that process. I want to thank the mayor for immediately taking action to seek state and federal assistance to help those who suffered losses in last week's storm. And that includes some people who are experiencing homelessness, people who had almost nothing to begin with. They lost what remaining possessions they did have. I want to thank everybody who pitched in to help evacuate people from the shelter at 16th and Newton, including city staff and MTS employees, and of course the Alpha Project. People from the shelter are currently staying at the Balboa Park Activity Center. The safe sleeping site at 20th and B experienced minor flooding, and it was evacuated as a precautionary measure. I appreciate the staff from multiple city departments, including Homeless Strategies and Solutions and the Parks Department, who ensured that the residents of the safe sleeping site were taken care of until they returned to the site a day or 2 later. We had vehicles stranded in high water along Imperial Avenue in East Village, and I want to thank our firefighters and lifeguards and police for all their efforts to rescue people across our city at the height of the storm. And I also want to acknowledge personnel from our environmental services and stormwater departments and all of our city departments who've been working nonstop to help all of those who have been impacted by the storm. It will take some time for many of our residents to recover from this storm. Some have lost everything. And we need to remember what we've heard today as we plan and prepare for the storms to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Whitburn. Do we have any additional requests to speak to this item? Councilmember LaCava, we'll go back to
I'm sorry, just real quickly, can we get an update on the utilities? I noticed when we were out there that the city had high lines out there. I don't know if anybody's actually able to even be in their home. I think there's some homes that actually were above the flood areas. Is the water safe to drink?
Councilmember Chris McFadden with the also representing Public Utilities Department. So you've seen the high lines in that area. That area is undergoing a group job, so an improvement to the water system. There was an incident where one of the contractors did strike one of those high lines, but that was immediately repaired. So no other service issues related to water at this time.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I'd heard that question pop up a few times. Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember LaCava. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you to all those who are out here speaking today. I think beyond acknowledging, I think the simple reality that as much as we may be doing, we're not doing enough. I think that's just something we need to be frank about. And also recognizing that as a city, it's not just the city, every level of government agency that we can bring to bear in response to this is going to be critical. And I think the partnership efforts that we are looking to engage are significant. I would note that, I think we recognize there's another storm coming right off the bat. And as we're looking at a response, not just ensuring that we've got sand available, that folks will be able to tap into the resources they need to protect what they do still have, but would also implore that we ensure that we have a plan for what we clearly don't know what each storm is going to be like. But we have now seen the impact of this last one. I think we're also certainly acknowledging that there's going to be a tough recovery. And I don't see this as the days or the weeks ahead as much as I think about the fact that right now our attention is on the impacts of the storm. To be frank, many San Diegans did not have the same level of impact. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge that there are many San Diegans who do not recognize that they have their own neighbors and fellows in the city who don't have a home tonight, tomorrow night, and perhaps for months moving forward. And so as much as we're bringing attention to this today, I would also recognize that the work is going to take months, if not years, in terms of recovery. And it does mean that as we plan moving forward, that's the time frame that we also need to be thinking of. For folks in some of our communities who have been through disasters, I have members in my community who were there during Katrina. I think there was also a reflection, I think we should consider how we work with the community on this, that it's in disaster moments like this where we often see also very predatory opportunists out there, everything from folks trying to possess people's homes to, I mean, there's just many things I think we've seen. Councilmember Von Wilpert and I have certainly heard from residents in Scripps Ranch post fires about many predatory practices that the community had to be prepared to defend. And I think to whatever degree the city can take some action in preparing residents, in equipping community organizations to be able to respond, to support them when those actions come, because frankly, in the darkest of times, I think folks are certainly, they're at risk of being victims in more than one way. And so just these are thoughts that I want to put out there to consider how we act as a city. Again, not just what we're going to do in the next couple weeks, not just with this next storm, but the fact that the recovery is going to be months and years in the making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mr. Yagan, for the report and for the declaration. Absolutely will be in support. I want to thank the city employees who were chest deep in water trying to save our neighbors who suffered the most from this. And this issue is obviously long known. It's well reported on. And I think every single council member up here has had budget priority memos saying how important stormwater is to get fixed. And it is extensive. There are so many spots, and that require the funding to fix this. And I know that our city staff who are here in the chamber right now have dedicated countless moments thinking of where will the disaster happen and how can we get to it as quickly as possible. For the last several years since I've been elected, I know they do that. And I truly appreciate the work they were able to do. And now, as we focus in on the folks who are in chambers today who have lost everything that they have, know that absolutely this council's committed to helping you. There's people in the room here who are our government affairs board. You've mentioned we need to go get help from the state and federal governments. Mr. Bishop and Mr. Granda are our leaders in the city government who help us go do that. You know, not many mayors in the country can put in a call to the Vice President of the United States to say, we need your help right now. And we're taking this incredibly seriously to try to get every single potential person helped. Certainly, as the Chair of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations, I'm going to make sure we do that too. There's no reason that the San Diegans who've suffered the most from this aren't helped out in the way a person in the Plain States who are hit by a tornado are helped by our federal government. There's no reason that San Diegans aren't helped out in the same way that Floridians who are hit by hurricanes every year are helped out. San Diegans deserve that too. And we have a good team to help go get that done. My last thanks is to Councilmember Moreno for day after day after day being there for her constituents. Her entire staff has been out there, and I have to give a special shout out to her staff member, Elizabeth Rodriguez, who is the person who's served Southcrest, and she's been doing a great job. And so thank you very much, Councilmember Moreno, for standing up for people like you always do.
Thank you, Councilmember Campillo. I've got a few questions. First, Matt, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work that you've done and the mayor and the mayor's team has done. The appreciation for city staff that's been out there. I want to echo that as well. We have an enormous task ahead of us, and I know a lot of work has already been done, and we are not even scratching the surface. The first is, and this is going to kind of be all over the place, so apologies. It's going to be super granular at times and other times pretty big picture. Sandbags, folks are scared, or they are really, really scared. There's the folks who lost everything, and then there's folks who realize that they very well could have lost everything. But for a little more rain, or the sandbags not holding up quite as well as they did. We've heard that there is not sand at all the locations. Can we verify that there is and will be sand for folks if they show up to the sites?
We can do that for you, Council President. My understanding is that the delivery of sand will happen Tuesday at the 10 sites, but we'll certainly verify that for you.
Appreciate that. And if we can just make sure that we are very, very specific when we share the information. There are a lot of people who feel like government has and is failing them. And if we tell them that there is going to be something there and it is not there, we just can't do that. Whether that's sand or housing or anything else. Our margin for error in terms of communication is zero right now. The other thing is the limit on bags. I understand that oftentimes we have a limit of 10 bags per person. I would recommend that we not have that right now. Folks have lost their cars, and so there's a lot of mutual aid happening, as you recognized. Folks are doing things for the neighborhood, for their street. One person might be getting the bags for the block, and so if we can avoid unnecessary arbitrary rules that are good at times, but not necessarily the things that we want in place right now. We don't need city staff arguing with someone who's trying to make a run for 4 different households, right? So I'd recommend that we be very thoughtful about that. I have a specific question about. Well, I'll hold off on that one, but I did want to give Walt and Adrian a chance to talk about collaboration with other governmental agencies. That is critical right now. My understanding is in times of emergency, there is a very specific flow of the way requests need to be made. It doesn't matter if you are best friends with the president. There is a protocol that needs to be followed, and intergovernmental communication is super important right now. So if you could speak to what's happening on that front, that'd be much appreciated.
Thank you, Council President. Adrian Granda, Director of Government Affairs, and I'll kick it over to Walt if he has anything to add. Typically, the OES process, falls under the umbrella of the county for regional emergency response. Ms. Beal can also speak to this, but there's specific thresholds set by Cal OES to trigger state relief, and then also for the federal government to trigger FEMA relief. So that was what was discussed earlier. The threshold right now, we've already triggered for the state level, so we're covered there. The benefits that could make themselves available for the city would be about 75% reimbursement for certain costs of public infrastructure, then specific loans for individual assistance. Now, the next triggers that we're looking to hit in coordination with the county and really statewide, because I know Imperial County has some impacts. Ventura was also part of the gubernatorial declaration. Should we hit a $74 million or so threshold for public assistance that makes public infrastructure reimbursable? The really big one there is then individual assistance for certain homes. That's where those Cal OES and FEMA assessment teams that are going out there to make sure we hit that federal level. That is somewhat of a nuts and bolts calculation, but we are also lobbying and advocating directly to the president, the vice president, to every level of government's leaders that there's an urgent need right now for our communities, for our homeowners, for our residents. So even outside of that process, we are lobbying, please prioritize this, make sure that the second this hits your desk, we're getting that approval.
Thank you, Adrian. Councilor LaCava, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
It's okay. It's not much of a flow.
I heard a comment from the public, and I went to the County of San Diego survey page, and if I read the preamble correctly, I wouldn't be very excited about it. It was like just a data collection for the county to decide if they want to do anything about it. I don't want people to fill out the survey to think this is a direct link to getting help. Can you clarify what these folks need to do?
We would encourage everyone to fill that out to the greatest extent possible. The county will be using that in conjunction with the assessments that the Cal OES and FEMA teams are doing out there on the ground. So that is extremely important. We urge everyone to please complete that county survey.
If they just do the survey, do they just sit back and wait for the county?
I would
or
say
the
if they
federal
complete the survey, that completes a portion of this. There will be additional work that the county will oversee as the regional leader on all emergency response to make sure we're qualifying for those thresholds.
government? If there's any additional information we can push out, let us know. I don't want people to misunderstand. Some of them may have never done this. Some may not have access to a computer, which is always a problem. But thank you.
Councilman LaCava, I think that is, and I think my understanding, that's part of what's complicated here is we need individuals to report to help trigger this response for the community. And at the same time, that doesn't necessarily trigger a response to that individual's needs. This is why the kind of interpersonal communication is so important here, letting folks know what they are actually providing information for, which is that to help the region hit that trigger, super, super important because that might provide federal financial assistance to individuals. It may not. But without individuals doing that, it's going to be incredibly difficult for us to hit that threshold. But to your point, we also don't want them to think that by doing that, they've signed themselves up for all the assistance that might come.
Council President, just one more thing too. We have U.S. Small Business Administration too is currently on the ground doing assessments for small business and homeowner relief, which is another assessment tool that they're currently undergoing on the ground here in these communities.
Thanks, Walt. And on that front, the assessment for small businesses as an example, obviously there are communities that were primarily impacted, and there were many small businesses that were impacted outside of those areas. I know of one in District 9 and one in District 3. I talked to two business owners by just happenstance yesterday in like 30 minutes who had pretty significant damage. They recognized that it didn't rise to the level of damage that occurred in other parts of the city, and so they're not making a big to-do about it, but it's going to impact their businesses, one in Normal Heights, one in Little Italy. So to the extent that city staff can make sure that that assessment accounts for folks who weren't in the most impacted areas as well, that it's going to be important to those individuals, but also to us as a region to make sure we hit our thresholds. Adrian, I think you said $74 million is the threshold for the region. There's already an estimated 44 million here in the city, and I think 22 million reported by MTS as of right now. So obviously rapidly moving toward that number. So that's mostly me reporting out what I know about the MTS impacts. Wanted to briefly say thank you to you all for the coordination with Julio for my team and working with the San Diego San Diego Unified School District and San Diego Community College District in terms of getting information out to folks. Still a lot of improvements need to be made on that front, but I want to say thank you for that. Have a question with respect to a very specific need that we're seeing folks run into. It seems that both to be excused from work for folks who are not able to get there and potentially be able to receive assistance that might be available through third parties, the verification of impact or specifically of uninhabitability of homes seems to be something that folks need. Is there an ability to create a point person here in the city for folks who are not able to live in their homes where we can get that verification of them so that government isn't standing between them and assistance that they may otherwise be eligible for?
We can certainly do that, coordinated through the incident management team and the emergency operations center.
That's great. I've talked to a couple folks who are getting bounced around across departments. This is not something that we typically do, right? Verify uninhabitability of homes. It's needed right now, though, for some super important reasons. We don't want people to lose their jobs while they've been impacted, and we don't want assistance that is sitting there waiting for them to not be able to be distributed to them because they can't get that verification. Thank you for that. The last thing I wanted to add here is I appreciate my colleagues' comments here today because one of the things that has really struck me is there's a number of things, but one is the scale of the impact is far greater than I think folks recognize. No doubt, Councilmember Moreno's district was hit the hardest, and that's devastating for many reasons. But I represented that area prior to redistricting. Those folks knew it was going to flood. We've talked about this in committee meetings. So they feel failed. And then there's other parts of the city that have been failed for generations that were impacted significantly. I'm going to use this as an example because I think it speaks to the gravity of the situation and the extent to which it's so far beyond what most folks recognize. Village Green Apartments is in the Rolando Park neighborhood in District 9. Rolando Park was not named in the neighborhoods that were impacted. I'm not offended by that. I understand why. In Rolando Park, there's one apartment, affordable apartment community, 57 bottom units, all wiped out. And that's not even on the radar, right? And we're not going to draw attention away from what needs to happen in Southcrest and Shelltown and Mountain View and in Canto because the crisis that's there is so significant. But when 57 homes are not even on the radar of the impact in our city, I just think that that's important for us to recognize that this is significant. And this is such a beautiful place to live. It is so nice in so many places. It is very easy for us to forget what's happening. And we cannot do that this time. I believe my colleagues when they say that they've been impacted by what they've heard and they want to serve our residents well. But what I know from sitting in the rooms of the folks who are providing mutual aid response, who have been impacted, who've watched their belongings get bagged up and dragged into a dumpster, is they'll believe it when they see it. And they'll believe it when they see it because they haven't seen it. And they've heard it for a long time. And I so want folks to believe in government. I know. And this is a moment of truth for our city as to whether or not we're going to show up. We have years of work to respond to generations of neglect. And when in how we respond, we will let folks know. Folks, I'm going to ask that you allow the conversation to, sir, if you're not going to respect the conversation up here, I'm going to ask you to leave. It's not going to get sorted out in this item for sure. It's a first step. We need to finish this up so that we can start to trigger some of the response that's needed from the federal government, the state government. But I just want to make sure that that part is known, that there is significant need, and it is need in communities that have been saying they have need and have been ignored for so long. And I hope that at the end of this, we look back and change folks' minds about how government can and should respond to crises, and don't affirm what they've been shown they should believe, which is that their communities don't matter. My last point I wanted to say is I wanted to give a shout out to the District 4 staff. That office is still staffed and they are still out there. And you know, while the seat is not filled on the dais, there are folks out there doing incredible work, and there are parts of District 4 that were absolutely devastated. And so I want to make sure that that does not go unseen. I appreciate what they are doing. And the last shout out is to the folks who are showing up and providing that mutual aid. It's inspiring. I hope that we as city government can work better in partnership with them, because they have invaluable information and are doing heroic work. There were folks here in chambers who, as heated as their comments are for us, we should recognize they are showing up and putting the work in as well. They've got folks sleeping on their couch who they did not know prior to this emergency, because they care. Just a huge shout out to them, and thank you for the work that they're doing. I will obviously be supporting this item, and appreciate everyone's comments, thoughts, and questions. Thank you, everyone. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
I started the voting system. Please cast your vote. Councilman Moreno, would you like to give me your vote on the record?
I vote yes.
That vote passes unanimously 8-0 with Council District 4 vacant.
Thank you, clerk. Would you please introduce item S400?
Item S400 is the creation of an ad hoc committee for the recruitment of the executive director to the Commission on Police Practices. This item is not subject to the mayor's veto. If you'd like to speak to this item, please be sure to submit your speaker slip to the highlight